Prosecuting and humiliating Donald Trump might be the only way to save democracy in America. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. I am of the opinion, and I published this article this morning over on medium.com and tweeted it, that essentially the only way that you can stop an authoritarian coup, or the only way that you can stop essentially authoritarian fascism, for lack of a better phrase, is by not just exposing it, but actively going after it, prosecuting it. And even then, I mean, it has to be done in a way that so clearly illustrates what's going on that there's no ambiguity about it. Keep in mind, you know, Adolf Hitler, when he had his generation's Proud Boys, the brown shirts. He had them roughing up people in beer halls in Munich, and starting fights and things, and attacking people who didn't look Aryan and stuff like that, And the consequence of that was he went to prison, and when he came out, he was a bigger deal than when he went in. Because, I don't think that the Germans had seen exactly this before, and I'm not sure that we've seen exactly this before. So I'm arguing that only a public trial and widespread humiliation of Donald Trump, of the dozen Republican senators who say that they are down with an attempt to overturn American democracy, to throw out an election, with the 140 plus Republican members of the House of Representatives who say that they don't believe in our republic. They want a strongman form of government where the president can simply call up a Secretary of State and say, listen, give me 11,480 votes. I want them now. That these people, we can't just at the end of this just say, they were a little weird, but let's move on. Which is, essentially what Jerry Ford said about Richard Nixon. Yeah, it was a crime, but let's move on. It's essentially what Bill Clinton said about Reagan and, cutting a deal with the Iranians to hold the hostages to cause Jimmy Carter to lose the election, the whole Iran-Contra thing. Excuse me, it's essentially the same thing that Bill Clinton said after George W. Bush and Dick Cheney lied us into Iraq and unnecessarily attacked Afghanistan, and stupidly. I mean, we're still in Afghanistan. It's almost 20 years later. And a lot of Americans have died, and many more Americans have been wounded as a result of that. But in every case so far, we've done the same thing Germany did in 1920, when they put Hitler in prison, which is to say, well, okay, we'll just do this and then we'll be over with it. And in every case with every one of the last three Republican presidents, we didn't get over it because we never prosecuted it. When Reagan cut a deal with Iran to hold the hostages so that he could beat Jimmy Carter, Bill Barr, as Lawrence Walsh, the special prosecutor, was closing in on prosecuting both Reagan and Bush Sr., who was the vice president at that time. Now fast forward to 1992, Bush Sr. has been president for 4 years. Lawrence Walsh has been doing his investigation. He's got it down to the point where he's got the evidence to convict George Bush, the elder. And all he needs is Bush's diary, and Bush is refusing to release it. That would show, what they were up to back in the day. And so Bill Barr, who was the Attorney General for George Herbert Walker Bush, says, just pardon everybody, and then he won't have witnesses. He won't be able to pursue the investigation, which is what George Herbert Walker Bush did on Christmas Eve in 1992. Massive cover-up. And what that did was that told essentially George W. Bush, the next Republican president, that if he committed crimes while in office, he could probably pretty much rely on not being held to account for them. And sure enough, he committed crimes while in office. I mean, you could say his coming to office was a crime, That wasn't so much his doing as it was people like Jim Baker who surrounded him, Lawrence Walsh, John Roberts, the people who worked on the lawsuit that they took to the Supreme Court, Amy Coney Barrett, Brett Kavanaugh, John Roberts. They were all the lawyers who helped put George W. Bush before the Supreme Court and thus put him in the White House in 2000. And then he lied us into these 2 wars and nobody held them to account. I mean, we've got this pharmacist, and then Barack Obama came in and said, well, I prefer to look forward rather than backward, right? So we've had three consecutive Republican presidents who've gotten away with massive crimes, 4 if you include Nixon, who've gotten away with massive crimes, and the lesson that the Republicans have gotten out of this is, hey, do whatever it takes. If you get power, you can get rich, you can get powerful, you can help your buddies, you can get reelected, everything is good. And if you get busted, well, you retire from politics, but you get a good job like Paul Ryan did as a lobbyist. This pharmacist who in Wisconsin, who destroyed 500 doses of the coronavirus vaccine, did so because he believed in this Facebook promulgated conspiracy theory that this vaccine somehow alters human DNA. Not the case at all, not even remotely. But this guy believed it. Trust is essential for all kinds of things to work. Conspiracy theories are attempts to explain things we don't understand when we don't trust the official voices, as it were. And this pharmacist was not trusting Fauci and the FDA. He was trusting whack-a-mole stuff that he saw on Facebook or on YouTube. And he destroyed these vaccines. In order to restore trust, in order to restore faith in our government, in order to restore confidence in how we go forward, in my humble opinion, we have to have public trials. We have to reinvent the Nuremberg trials, not necessarily, not the hangings, but certainly bring back or reinvent an American version. I mean, this was European, but if these guys are not held to accountable, if Donald Trump ends up being the 5th Republican president to commit major crimes while in office and not being held to account by the subsequent Democratic president, the next Republican president is going to be so much worse. So, should it be a trial? Should it be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission?
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
How do we restore faith in American democracy?